I see you shiver with anticipation.
Say it.
Hey, Mommy, you spoiled the surprise, Mommy. Hey, guess who is now appearing on Validate Me? You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hey, so Mommy has agreed to join us.
Yeah,
we definitely
that's funky.
So
Reluctantly,
somewhat reluctantly, but Mommy can definitely chime in on several of the things that we've got coming up in the future, and I think Rocky Horror is definitely one of them. She has some good Rocky Horror experiences. So, Presley, why don't you tell everybody where they are and what they're listening to, in case they accidentally clicked on a link somewhere?
Hi, welcome to Validate Me. I'm sorry you didn't get rickrolled and instead got sent to this podcast. This is a podcast where me and my dad, and now my mom, will show each other things and hope that the other will validate them and like it as well. My dad usually shows me stuff from his childhood, stuff that he really enjoyed when he was my age, and I send him stuff that I like now.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
And Mom exists now.
We'll figure out how the recommendation thing goes with Mommy in the mix,
I was just panicking. Oh my God, I got to think of a recommendation.
No. Mommy doesn't. Okay. Presley's doing the recommendation this go around, and then we're actually changing formats slightly next go around.
Oh my God.
And then there'll be a little bit of time to kind of figure some stuff out, and then Mommy can make some recommendations.
I was thinking cinema parody. Like, it's going to be very different than
Platoon
what y'all
will be like the next movie that we do.
Hamburger Hill.
Goodfellas will be in the mix soon. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. But this time it was my turn to do the recommendation, and I'm sorry it took us a while to get back to this. I say that as if there are people listening and waiting on the podcast to post. But this time it was mine, and we had a little two-parter sort of. I had Presley do Rocky Horror. We curled up on the couch kind of like 2 weeks ago and watched Rocky Horror, and then I didn't want to do the podcast until we had the chance to actually go do a live show. And so last weekend, Presley and I went to a live show, saw the midnight movie, shadow cast, the whole shebang. So let's start with the pre-live show, right?
Okay, I have a question first.
All right, go ahead.
How did this happen? Why did this whole subculture of humans decide to sit down and scream at a movie?
I don't know. Like anything else like this, there's a whole urban legend kind of thing behind it.
Do you know what?
Well, there are several kinds of stories about it, right? But I mean, it was just sort of, it was not great, and people started yelling at the screen, and it kind of just became. It was in New York, I think. The showings in New York,
that makes sense.
And it kind of became like a little bit more of a trendy thing. Like there is someone actually out there who, when I was reading some of the articles, I didn't write it down, but there was somebody out there who actually got credit for being one of the first people to sort of yell at the screen, and then it just sort of caught on. So
Do you remember what it was?
I don't know how urban legendy that is. I know that it may be Tim Curry, who's Frankenfurter, right?
Yes.
I think he said that David Bowie's wife yelled at the screen during one of the screenings that he was in, and he thinks she was one of the first people.
Well, I saw something that talked about maybe it was a little bit kind of about Bowie and like glam rock.
The movie itself?
Yeah.
So one of the fun facts that I've got a couple of fun facts, is that Bowie's makeup artist did the makeup design for the movie.
Bowie's makeup artist?
So like the Major Tom sort of thing. What was the one with the big lightning bolt? I can't remember now. I've totally blanked out on what the design was. But yeah, so they did that design, but apparently it took like 4 hours to get Frank in his makeup.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And so Tim Curry ended up doing it himself faster, but based off of the design that Bowie's makeup artist did.
Tim Curry
so they
did that
actually
himself?
brought that. Yeah, Tim Curry did the makeup.
Wow,
himself.
icon.
Yeah. Pretty cool. So I thought that was pretty neat.
That is neat.
Yeah.
Neat.
So yeah, who knows how these things happen and turn into the things that they turn into?
Because it's not real good.
It's not good. I think the first act is fantastic.
Movie. Yeah,
like
I
really love the first act, and then it kind of falls apart a little bit.
Yeah.
But we'll talk more about that. And another thing that I thought was really cool. So it was a stage show in London for a long time. You know who was a big fan of the stage show?
I don't.
Princess Diana.
What?
she used to go see the show, and she asked to meet Tim Curry after one of the shows, and had a conversation with him about Rocky Horror.
And do you think she put up money for the movie?
I doubt it, but I know she was a fan. I know she. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows how true it is, but it says on the internet in a lot of articles about it.
A lot of things on the internet.
Princess Diana was a fan of the show, which I think is really neat. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, it was clearly a stage show shot. It was.
They kept a lot of the stage show. Yeah.
It wasn't shot at like a traditional movie.
And they kept a lot of the actors too, which I think is really interesting. And one of the things that I read was that the writer and director were offered a bigger budget if they would recast it
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they said, no, we want to use our cast. And so the only people they brought in
Iconic.
were Brad and Janet, because they wanted American actors, obviously, for those two. But they used the rest of like the stage actors to do everything else. And they actually accepted a lower budget in order to
Even
keep
the
their
like
cast.
background. Because I
The
had
Transylvanians?
I had
think
written
so.
that down because they're really bizarre.
So the other thing,
yeah.
like we're getting into, we're having meta conversation before we have detailed conversation. But the other thing is that the wardrobe designer, like maybe hair and makeup, I've got her name written in here somewhere. I'll come back to it. I think it's Anne. So a lot of people give her credit for sort of designing the punk look. Like she came up with this look, and so like the dyed hair and the fishnets and like a lot of the things that came together were her creation for this. And they were saying that like, you know, Joey Ramone and like a lot of like one of the Transylvanians just looked like Joey Ramone. And people look like punk rockers and stuff, and there's different, like the wardrobe kind of ties in, and so there are people that say she should get credit for the punk rock aesthetic coming out of it, because it was very punk and glam and stuff like that for sure. Yeah,
for sure.
definitely. But it was early in that phase, right? It was kind of before a lot of that stuff came out, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Funky.
Yeah. All right. So let's do pre-movie stuff. So
Pre-movie.
Presley, launch into whatever before we
All
start
right.
talking about the movie.
I started the movie the first time we watched it, really delirious. I started the movie when we watched it on stage, really delirious. And I started it right now, really delirious. So all of my thoughts
Perfect.
about it are very interesting.
That's probably the accurate way to consume
Yeah, for
Rocky
sure.
Horror.
Yeah.
You're in your best possible state for Rocky Horror.
Yeah, no. Like, I'm in one of those... I just didn't put any brains into understanding what happens in the end, especially, at all.
Yeah, you were like Eddie, like half a brain.
Yeah.
Kinda,
I'm just like, I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
watching.
Yeah.
So where should we start?
Yeah, so I'm going to
Should we
start with before the show,
before
before the
show,
live performance.
where
and
we
then
were
we'll get
lined
into the
up?
movie.
I feel like it was really inappropriate.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess that's a good caveat.
Can we talk about
I was
that?
going to sort of say before this whole thing, right? So Rocky Horror itself is pretty inappropriate.
Yeah.
And
The show even more so.
it's a really interesting thing because it's also really problematic. Like taken at face value, it's super problematic.
Yes.
At face value.
At face value, right? Not for sort of the campiness and stuff like that. Like if you put it in cultural context, it's not as problem. To me, it's not as problematic. I understand that people do consider it to be pretty problematic, and that's totally fine. But like put in its context, I don't find it to be. And especially when you put it in the context of the live event, which is way more problematic.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
than the movie itself. The content of the live event goes way over the edge. So if you don't know what goes on at a live event and you're thinking about going, do a little bit of research. Like it's fun to go to things like sight unseen and experience them for the first time. This is not one of those things. And the show that we went to, like I'm sure there are a lot of really problematic shows as well.
Yeah.
Like the environments are really problematic. And even someone posted on our Instagram feed that the show that we went to has some issues. And I'm going to continue to do some research into it, but I'm just going to say what happened from my perspective. And Presley, you can say what happened from your perspective.
Yeah.
But like in line, they were number one. They were super upfront that it's a very offensive show, and if you don't like it, you should leave now. Like, don't go in if you're sensitive in any way to any kind of content, because it's going to be
To any content.
Like
If
they,
you have sensitive,
like hey,
go.
anything where the rules start off with please don't take photos of the stripper. Is probably, you've got an idea what kind of environment you're going to be in, right? But then they said, hey, rule number 2 is consent.
Yes.
And they gave like demonstrations and they talked a lot about consent and said, hey, this is a really rowdy show and lots of stuff is going on, but these are the rules. Like you can touch each other with consent, and this is what consent looks like, and this is how you ask for consent.
They didn't do that in the 80s.
No, they didn't used to do that, right? It was a very different thing,
Right.
right? And so some of the callbacks even sort of imply non-consensual activity, right? But they were very clear. Like this is about consent. We want everybody to have a good time. Everybody should have fun.
Yeah.
And if people are into it and having a good time, and you have their consent, then you knock yourself out. All bets are off. But make sure that you have people's consent to do things. And they said, look, and I'm telling you right now, you do not have the consent of the shadow cast. So nobody touches the shadow cast. Nobody does anything inappropriate with the shadow cast. You do not have our consent to do things. We're telling you up front, you don't. So like that was pretty cool. Like that was something I wasn't used to seeing in the environment. And I thought they did a great job with it. So I just throwing that caveat out there. So don't go see the show until you know kind of what happens in one of the shows. Especially
Research the virgin ritual.
Yeah, the virgin sacrifice and the virgin rituals are by far usually the worst part of it.
Yes.
So dig around a little bit,
Hi,
find out what
it.
they usually are. I actually reached out to the people that run.
Them?
Yeah, I contacted the people that run the show that we were going to ask them what their virgin sacrifice was, because that was the part I was most worried about for Presley. And so knowing what it was, knowing what her involvement would or would not be, like I knew all that going into it so that I was more comfortable about it. So yeah, all that sort of legalese aside.
Yeah, I didn't have to do it. All I had to do was stand up.
Aside from that,
Touch my nose.
Like all of that said, I had a blast.
Oh, same.
Like it was a
great.
celebration. It celebrated like friendship and LGBT and body positivity and like everything. Like it was a super, super, super fun environment.
Yeah, it was
I was
great.
afraid everybody was going to be like super drunk and like a frat party kind of thing. It was not that at all.
There were drunk people for sure. But
there were people
like
that had been
mean.
drinking, but they were like fun. They were happy.
Yeah.
They were dancing. People were doing the damn little shark thing that I'd
Baby
never heard of.
shark.
Baby shark that I'd never heard of before. Like the other thing that it showed me is how out of touch I've become.
Right.
Because like all of the callbacks have updated like cultural references, and then the pre-show is updated cultural references, and so I had no idea what to do. Okay, but I had a blast. Poojan, what were your thoughts?
Fun
because you're the most SJW among us. So
I'm the
what
Brett.
were your thoughts?
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's 3 of us. I'm the
Yeah.
Brett. My thoughts were like, there was some very obvious sexual assault within the movie,
Yes.
but like everyone was sort of making fun of it in a way where it's like very clear that this isn't okay, but we're gonna make fun of it.
Yeah.
And so like it was just a fun time, and so everything was very clear. They had like rule number 2, consent.
Yeah.
You have to have consent. And rule number 3, don't touch the minors.
Mommy, you tell us about some of your live experiences, if you remember any of them.
Okay, I do, because I was way under 18.
Yeah.
So I used to work at the movie theater, starting when I was 15, and we played Rocky Horror. I guess it must have been at midnight.
Every week?
I don't
Like
know
once
if
a
it's every
week,
week. It
or-
was pretty often.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was just for a certain amount of time, like maybe
Around
for a year
Halloween.
or so. Yeah.
Like people do it around Halloween and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I don't remember it happening constantly, but
Right.
it definitely happened for a while.
Right.
And so I would work them, and because it's shot in Denton.
It's not
Not
shot in Denton.
Well,
It's based in Denton. It is
Denton,
based in
and
Denton.
that's the
right.
city that I'm from.
Yeah, Mommy's from
so
Denton, Texas.
I'm almost positive that we thought it was shot in Denton, and that was
And-
like
and that-
one
and
of
that
the
it was
claim to
actually based
fame.
in
Yeah,
Denton. Yeah, Denton,
So
Texas,
I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, Rocky Horror is made in."
And so let's just get it out there. Like it's not based in Denton,
It's
Texas.
not.
It is
It's
not.
not. We,
It is.
we,
It's
I
definitely
even
not
looked it up.
based in Denton, Texas.
If it's based in any Denton, it's Denton, Ohio, which there is a Denton, Ohio. And she was reading the Plains Dealer in the car. Like there's a bunch of clues that make you understand it could be Ohio. But really, the guy that wrote it, I think wrote a thing earlier about like Dentonville or something like that. Like he created this Anytown, USA kind of place that he called Denton. And it's really kind of based there. So it's not even a real place.
Yeah.
And it was shot in London.
Right.
It was shot in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't
Denton,
recognize
Texas.
anything in it that I'd be like, oh, well, that's
Because it was in
used
London.
Denton. And so that makes me wonder if we really did, but I feel like we did. I feel like
did.
I
Yeah,
did,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
And so I would work them, and it was really, it was gross, is what I remember about
I
it.
remember
There
the
was
first time
lots
you
of
said that to me,
food.
and I was like, "What?" You were
That
like,
I
it was
worked
shot
in-
in, no, it was shot in Denton, Texas. I'm like, what are you talking about?
No, it
It was
wasn't.
not shot in Denton, Texas.
I was pretty adamant about it.
You were pretty adamant
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Yeah. And that may even been before like big internet where we could have looked it up at the time. Like,
Right.
that was really early in our
Right.
relationship. Yeah.
So I mean, it was kind of a part of my childhood. I mean, I would work, and we'd have to clean up afterward. That's what I remember about it being gross.
What you're saying is your childhood was a lie.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, in many, many, many ways. But yes,
But in this way in particular, with,
yes.
with Denton.
There was lots of popcorn around. Like,
Sure.
yeah.
Was that unusual for the movie theater in general?
Well, people
not-
wouldn't throw it. I mean, you'd have to clean up after
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
showing,
Yeah.
but there
of
wouldn't
course.
be anywhere near. And it feels like there was like
They were
ketchup
probably
or something
throwing it
sticky.
for, like, confetti.
Yeah, was there
Yeah.
something sticky
I don't
involved?
remember there being
There might have been.
stickiness.
Like ketchup or something?
No, I
Or-
don't remember ketchup. There was, there was,
Rice,
there's water,
toast.
there's rice,
Water,
there's toast, there's confetti.
No food in our
Toilet
theater,
paper
by the way.
is a big
Yeah,
thing.
for
Yeah.
sure. So I mean,
I
it was
got
pretty
wrapping
gross
paper, woo.
afterwards. I mean, I don't think I don't know that I had to clean up the whole thing, but
So did you ever go, or did you just?
oh yeah, no, I worked in it.
You were in the theater while they were doing
it?
Oh, cool. And were you like yelling out the shadow cast stuff?
Well, I mean,
this is
in my head.
This is a cool thing that came up. We haven't actually talked about the movie at all yet.
Oops, it's okay. We'll talk about it later.
One of the things that Mommy said just maybe yesterday when we were talking about it is that she's never seen it with a shadow cast.
Yeah, I don't think we had a shadow
really
cast.
weird.
Like, she's only seen it with the audience participation and yelling and stuff, right? And so one of the things that was new for me, there are many things that were new for me in the show, right? But one of them was that the shadow cast, or not really the shadow cast, but like security or the people, the ushers, let's say, were yelling out all of the callbacks, so that the people in the theater that didn't know the callbacks could kind of learn them from the cast. And I thought that was really neat because I don't remember that never happened with me. I don't remember that ever happening.
I mean, people knew them.
You just learned it from the other people that were going with you and were seeing it, right?